Hello everyone, Gammon here. So because I don't want to waste your time, let me just start with a list of facts about this game that could be a deal breaker for you, and if they are, you should not be playing Albion. So Albion is old. Albion is very, very old. It was released in 1995, and even judging by 1995 standards, Albion is not a very pretty game. The graphics are incredibly dated. The 3D environments are very simple geometry, usually just cubes, with incredibly flat textures. And all of the enemies and all of the people around you are 2D sprites that will be moving around in the 3D environment or in the 2D environment when it applies. I do want to mention that the 2D environments and the 2D maps look significantly better than the 3D. The music and most of the sounds around you are basically chiptune. I mean, personally, I think it's good chiptune, but if you cannot handle a game that's very dated, a game that has very poor graphics, by the way, I do mean poor. Even things like the 2D sprites lack detail and they look fuzzy. This is not the prettiest game around. If that really bothers you, you should not be playing Albion. There's a lot of, small bugs, a few small missing pieces of dialogue, nothing major. I did have one crash while playing it, so it's not completely stable, but it's pretty stable. And like I said, all the bugs are pretty minor. It's small missing text or text that looks weird. And, speaking of text, nearly forgot. No voice acting in this game. None whatsoever. And there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of backstory, there's a lot of stuff. So there's gonna be walls of text here. Like genuine walls of text. This game has more text than most visual novels, and reading the text is a huge part of the game. In other words, you'll be reading a lot. If you have a big problem with reading, this isn't the game for you. So if you can't handle very, very, very old games with all the baggage that entails, you shouldn't play Albion. But for everyone else, the reason you should play Albion is because the game does something incredible. It captures the feeling of wonder. Albion's world feels real and organic. There is almost no question that's left without a logical explanation. Everything and everyone acts with a reason and acts in a way that makes sense to the player. Despite how dated it is, everything in Albion immerses you deeper into the game. Even the starting cinematic, which by the way is the worst looking part of the game, ties into the very first moment of the game, since it's a recurring dream your protagonist Tom Driscoll is having. So, what is Albion? What is this game about? Well, the year is 2227, and you are Tom Driscoll, a pilot for a large multinational company that has built a world cracker. A ship so big it can destroy an entire world in order to mine every last scrap of valuable material out of it. During a routine mission to check up on your current target, a world named Albion that's unusually rich in extremely valuable minerals, your vehicle malfunctions and your ship crash lands. When you exit the ship, you make a startling discovery. Not only is the world not barren, but it's a thriving jungle planet that's inhabited by a sentient alien species. It looks a bit like a cross between a panther and a human, called Iskai. By the way, if you're a furry, this is definitely the game for you, but if you're not a furry, just ignore the furries. Trust me, don't think about it. Anyway, your main quest will now revolve around trying to get back to your ship while surviving on an alien world. Now, the reason I love Albion is how alien it actually feels. So many people try to write alien cultures, alien civilizations, only for them to end up being humans in weird colors or a part of humanity, like isolated, like, oh, these guys are the rage aliens, these guys are the love aliens, whatever. And they don't actually manage to produce a genuinely alien feel, something that looks very dissimilar and very uncomfortable from a human perspective. And this is something Albion actually nails. A large part of the early game will be you just going around and learning about the Isekai civilization, how they build houses, how their family structure works, their rituals, and it's all fascinating. It's world building at its best, and alien while still remaining understandable. For instance, the Isekai live in a sweltering hot jungle. Because of this, they don't have a nudity taboo. Remember when I said if you're a furry, this is the game for you? Also, they have incredibly short lives, with the average lifespan being about 40 years. This means other siblings act like parents more than the parents do. That's because parents will probably die before the younger children end up getting to maturity. In many ways, Albion feels like a game version of Star Trek: The New Generation. You're not just stranded on a planet. You're an explorer contacting a new and fascinating alien race with its own culture. The game's pacing is also great. So the first part is pretty slow and you're slowly learning about, the Isekai culture, how to move, how to interact with the world, only for the pace to dramatically ramp up as you find yourself thrust into a murder mystery that forces you into a mysterious and haunted house in an attempt to find the murderer. This game is great in giving you just the right amount of time to learn about your environment and explore the culture before then throwing you into the main quest again and giving you a bunch of stuff to do that's, generic RPG stuff. Fight monsters, go to a dungeon, explore the dungeon. But even when you're thrust into the dungeon, you're still exploring. Each dungeon has its own little backstory, its own explanation of how it got there. A lot of them have secrets. A lot of them have really, really interesting stories that you're going to have to work in order to discover. And this great use of pacing, it lets you really savor all the weirdness around you, while at the same time not getting bored. Now, it's actually really difficult to speak about Albion without spoiling the story, and I'd hate to do that because exploring and discovering is the best part of the game. But I would like to talk a little bit about the structure of Albion, and it's a very solid structure. The game is divided into sections, and each section is an island. In each island there's a lot to explore, a lot to fight, but more importantly, each section has its own unique culture and its own main plotline. In the first part, the Isekai part, you'll be thrust into a murder mystery while learning about their culture. And in each other part, while you'll also have a very interesting main quest, you'll also be surrounded by a new alien culture. Now, as for mechanics, Albion is going to be a game you're gonna have to get used to. All the movement is done by mouse, with you pressing the left key to move yourself both in 2D and 3D space. When you press the right key, you'll be able to choose a part of the map, be it a garbage pile or a person or a treasure chest, whatever, and then choose some form of interaction with the object. This can be choosing a crumbling wall and then choosing to use a pickaxe on it, choosing a person and then choosing to talk to it, or choosing the manipulate option, which just means using it. If you see manipulate, it just means picking up items from a garbage heap or opening a treasure chest and taking items from it. You're not actually manipulating a treasure chest into doing your bidding. Albion is not that cool of a game. Okay, lame jokes aside and returning to mechanics, the keyboard is hardly ever used. It's kinda awkward, it's obviously dated, it's an old game, but it's not unusable. You can get used to it. Now, the game has both 2D and 3D parts, and you'll be moving between them fluidly. Most of the game is 2D, and this is the part of the game that still shines visually, at least a little bit. The sprites and the 2D environments in general aged fairly well. I still love the look of the first island, the odd-ass looking plants and animals. Everything looks alien and neat and just weird. But the 3D environments aged significantly less well. Most hub cities and most dungeons will be rendered in 3D, and, well, when you stand still, it doesn't look that bad, but when you move around, you'll see that it gets kind of blurry. That's really unfortunate, but there's still parts of the game that look nice. But overall, even saying dated is probably letting the 3D graphics off lightly. And calling them 3D is actually probably an overstatement. It's pretty obvious that these are pretty generic 3D shapes, usually cubes, with sprites, genuine like 2D sprites moving around. And sometimes those 2D sprites will actually get stuck on the geometry. It's it's not a good look for the game, but it's not the worst it can absolutely be. And, look, I'm not gonna fucking apologize for how bad this game looks, but one thing I will say is that while you're playing the game, it's not this obviously blurry, and as you're playing the game, you're going to notice it less and less because this is a genuinely engrossing experience. The gameplay is your very classic CRPG. Each battle is divided into a series of turns. In each turn, you can tell each character what to do, be it move, use item, use skill, attack, whatever. And then that character will try to do that while the enemies follow their own programming. While the gameplay is quite simple, there is some hidden complexity, specifically the need for timing. As you can see, the encounter map is divided into squares, and when you tell any character to do an action, you're actually telling him to do the action to the square. So if you're telling him to move, you're telling him move to this square. If you're telling him attack, you're not actually telling him attack this monster, you're telling him attack this square in which the monster exists. Now, if that monster moves before your character and moves out of that square, your character will always miss. In the same way, if that monster moves before your character and they move into the square you told them to move to, he will be stuck and will waste his turn. And because of this, the timing of who acts first is critical. For instance, the Warniac is a really powerful monster. It can easily kill Syrah, who is the female isekai you're looking at, in one shot. She's really weak, she has low HP, isekai in general have really bad armor, and the Warniac, if he hits her, can probably kill her in one shot. However, Syrah is way more agile than the Warniac. Because of this, she always acts before him. So long as Syrah moves, no matter how many times the Warniac tries to hit her, he'll always end up hitting an empty square. He'll always end up missing. So timing doesn't just make you miss monsters, it can also make the monsters miss you. Understanding that all actions are performed on squares and the order of operation is king is critical to Albion's combat. Also, I kinda have to mention the combat is somewhat based on chance and it's hard as nails. So save often cause you're gonna be needing those saves, you're gonna die a bunch. Another aspect of the combat is resource management. Now you obviously have the regular do I want to use a potion or do I want to use an ability right now question that every RPG has. But there are also things like ammo. For instance, arrows and darts don't grow on trees, so you really want to know that the enemy isn't going to move before you try and shoot it, and you want to know that you're going to hit it. This is an even bigger problem when you have a gun. It is possible to get a gun as well as a few bullets in the early game, but these are going to be all the bullets you're ever going to have since Albion isn't technologically advanced. So every time you choose to use the gun, you are going to see the amount of bullets you have go down, and it never goes back up, which is heartbreaking and makes you want to use the gun less and less. But trust me, sometimes you're going to need to shoot things. Actually, let me get back to that point. You could get a gun. Exploration and curiosity is at the heart of Albion. Sure, you could get a gun if you look into the unexplained death on board and manage to solve a riddle before you leave for your mission. Or you can just live for your mission and miss out on it. You could try to communicate with the odd structure you find, or you can choose to fight it. You could explore an alien island you landed on, or you can go back to speak with the people involved in the murder mystery after you solved it. But nothing compels you to do it, nothing but your curiosity. However, Albion makes sure that there is always a secret, always an adventure, always something to see and do. The game is filled with extra little tidbits of, rewards and danger that you will discover by being curious, by exploring, by going that extra mile and checking to see what's behind that crumbling wall. What's in that basement? What's behind that dense jungle? And just be advised, most of the time the answer is danger, but danger usually has its own reward. And that's why I love Albion. It's a game full of wonder, full of secrets. Albion really captures the feeling of classic science fiction. It really captures the spirit of shows like Star Trek or Stargate or something else that starts with star. They were about making first contact, talking to new and weird aliens, understanding their culture, exploring their world, expanding your mind to the possibilities of what could be. It's why I still love this game despite all of its faults and after all of this time. But you know what else I love other than exploration and discovery? I love a good deal, and that's why I'm releasing this video now. Well, Good Old Games is having a slight sale on this one, and Albion, as of the publishing of this video, is $1.50. So please give it a try. The game is an absolute classic, and I honestly hope you love it as much as I do. And listen, word of advice from someone who's played it: if you think there's something to discover, there probably is. Talk to people, immerse yourself, look around you, try to find an extra thing, because there's almost always an extra thing in Albion. It is so immensely dense, and it's got a lot of lore and a lot of world building. It's really fantastic. It's one of the few games that somehow manages to transport you to a different world despite all of its technical difficulties. And come on, it's just $1.50 right now, so really, if you're ever gonna take a risk on a really ancient game, now's the time, and this is the game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and this really should be enough for now. Thanks for watching.